More on this, let me bring in Terry O'Neill, president of the National Organization for Women, and Zerlina Maxwell of thegrio.com with us tonight. Great to have both of you with us. I don't want to be negative, okay, but why do I have this feeling that women's rights in this country completely stuck in the mud right now, Terry, unless the House is turned over? Your thoughts?
Ed, I think you're absolutely right. Anyone who supports equality for women needs to be highly engaged in the 2014 midterm elections. We saw the last midterm elections were the disastrous 2010 midterm elections. We saw Tea Party extremists flooding into state legislatures and into the United States House of Representatives, and a lot of that was because our folks didn't vote. Unmarried women alone, their voter turnout rate in 2010 was only 38%. So we need to have a real focus on these midterm elections because the last midterm elections were disastrous for women. We can't let that happen again.
Well, Terry, I want to ask you, the onslaught of legislation that came against the women here in recent years, was that anticipated, or was that just, you know, it just came at such a rapid and torrid pace, it was hard to maneuver against it? What about that?
It was I think it was unanticipated, and I think what was really unanticipated was the shocking amount of funding that came. Remember, the 2010 elections happened right after the Supreme Court opens the floodgates to corporate meddling in political elections, and then we have all of this corporate money flooding into not just the elections, but then afterward fighting for the kinds of legislative policies that hurt women. Not only going after our reproductive rights, but also our economic justice rights.
Zerlina, you know, we talk a lot about minimum wage, okay, and we think that this obviously is going to appeal to wage earners across America. It might get them to be motivated to get involved in the process. How can this issue not motivate every woman in America to engage in the midterms when it's 77 cents on a dollar? Why has there been so little progress on women's rights with this dynamic being played out?
Well, I think, you know, we touched on that before. Really, it's about the House blocking everything. So, for example, Kathy McMorris Rodgers, who gave the State of the Union response for the Republican Party, and it was supposed to be a moment where, look, the GOP put a woman on the screen, and they really caring about women's rights, but she voted against paycheck fairness. And so, you know, putting a woman's face on bad policy is not the way to actually make women's lives better. And the minimum wage is the biggest issue, I think, and needs to be framed under the umbrella of the war on women. The war on women is not just about reproductive justice. The war on women is about the minimum wage. The war on women is about equal pay. The war on women is about paid sick leave, paid maternity leave. All of these things are about economic justice for women and families.
And all of those things you just mentioned, Zerlina, we haven't moved on because of Republicans. And if that doesn't motivate women to engage, I don't know what will. Zerlina, is it too early to talk about candidates? Or should we wait till after the midterm? I mean, and your response to this super PAC saying they're going to sit on the sideline in the midterm.
I think that's a huge mistake. And I think that, you know, Hillary Clinton, I'm looking to Hillary Clinton to be someone on the stump in 2014, on the stump talking about minimum wage and how the largest portion of minimum wage workers in this country are Black and Latina women. So when we're talking about the gender gap, I think it's very, very important that we note that the gender gap is women of color. Single women and women of color. It is not unmarried women, or excuse me, it's not married women, and it's not white women. And so I think that if we get Hillary Clinton on the stump in 2014, talking about the minimum wage, talking about equal pay, talking about reproductive justice for low-income women, I think that she would have a great impact on motivating young women to vote in the midterm elections, because it really is life or death for many of these women.
Terry, who could you point to on the Republican side that you would call an ally when it comes to passing common sense legislation like the Paycheck Fairness Act? What are some of the arguments you hear against it? Who are your allies, if any, over there?
You know, Ed, the Republican leadership in the House of Representatives and in the United States Senate have so squashed the ability of any Republican in the rank and file to support women's economic justice measures, like what Zerlina was talking about, paid sick days, paid family leave, extended leave, affordable, high-quality child care so that working moms can feel safe leaving their kids. You know, we don't have Republican champions. What the Republicans are saying is, oh, women make these choices, and it's because of choices that women make that they don't have equal pay. 2/3 of minimum wage workers in this country are women. Women do not choose to be corralled off into the lowest paying jobs in the economy, and yet that is what is happening to women. Zerlina is absolutely right. It's about younger women. It's about women of color. It's about immigrant women, women in immigrant communities who are very subject to exploitation in the workplace. Those things need to be addressed, and I love it.
Yeah, I want to ask both of you, is it too early to back Hillary Clinton? Zerlina?
I don't think it's too early to say, you know, I would support Hillary Clinton if she were to run in 2016, but I do think it's too early to coronate her with the nomination when we haven't even gotten past the fact that, you know, winning, making sure that we keep the House and then going forward to win keep the Senate and going forward to win the House, you know, that needs to be a priority. And talking about Hillary Clinton in 2016 does nothing to forward the purpose of making sure that Democrats win back the House of Representatives and make sure that things can get passed, because nothing can get done if we can't pass legislation.
And what do you think, Terry?
I couldn't agree more. It is going to be an uphill battle as it is for women's rights supporters to retain control of the Senate, let alone take the House. Right. I love the idea of Hillary being out there stumping for women's rights supporters. I think it's way too early for us to be talking about 2016. Midterm elections are notorious for our voters to sit home. We've got to light a fire under our own base and make sure that all of our people get out and vote.
Well, Terry, what do you think of this Priorities USA sitting out the midterms? Announced sitting out the midterms. What's your response to that?
I think it's a huge mistake. I don't understand why they would do that. I think that they absolutely need to be engaged. If you care about these policies, then you've got to get engaged in these elections. You've got to get voters mobilized to care about these policies in these elections. That's what's going to help in 2016.
No doubt. Terry O'Neill, Zerlina Maxwell, great to have you on the Ed Show on this Friday. I appreciate your time so much. Thank you. Remember to